On today's show, it's not always as good as it seems. It's not always as bad as it seems. We're going to talk through some of the good things we've seen through the Cavs 9-5 start, some of the bad things, and where the Cavs rank in some what I think are important statistical categories. That's all straight ahead on this Monday edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And thank you for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen. And thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. The show, of course, is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network in all of America. You can find this show and any other Locked On podcast wherever you get your podcast. That means Apple, that means Spotify, that means anywhere else. We are on YouTube as well, so make sure you are subscribed everywhere. And if you're watching this video right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, I want to talk about some of the good things that we have seen from the Cavs so far this season, because I do think that we've lost sight a little bit that the Cavs are 9-5 through the first 14 games, even though at times maybe it has felt as if they're 5-9 because they haven't necessarily always looked their best. We'll also talk about some of the things that do need to improve in order for this team to reach its championship ceiling. And then I'll go over some key statistical areas where the Cavs rank across the NBA. But I want to start with the good, because I think it's always a better decision to start with the good things. And I think the number one takeaway for me from the start of this season, from the first 14 games that the Cavs have played so far this year, is the way I felt about Donovan Mitchell coming into the season, thinking that he still had another gear to get to, or maybe another gear isn't the right way to term it, but that entering this season, I felt like Donovan Mitchell was still getting better. And through the first 14 games of the season, I feel like that's been true. I feel like so far, and yes, he's not played in all 14 games, but so far, I feel like he has been somebody that is playing better basketball than we've ever seen him before. He's scoring over 30 points per game. He's capable of going out and just taking over games the same way that he has in previous seasons, but his efficiency right now is in a really, really good place to start this season. I think that you could make and yes, he has to go out and he has to do this for a full NBA season, and it is a long time. It is November 17th as we're talking about this right now. So it's not as if this is a full and complete season, but for him to be averaging over 30 points per game while shooting nearly 50% from the floor, he's shooting 49.8% from the floor right now, which would be a career high, which not even close. Like the next best he has in his career was his first year in Cleveland when he shot 48%. He's shooting almost 50%. He's shooting over 38% from three, which is not his career best, but it is above his career average. And he's doing it while having to carry a heavier load than I think we would hope Donovan Mitchell would have to carry. And part of that is Evan Mobley, and we will get to Evan Mobley coming up in segment number 2. Part of that is the health issues that the Cavs have had. We will get to that in segment number 2. But I want to make the start of this about Donovan Mitchell, because the Cavs right now, for as much as it doesn't necessarily feel like we're watching a team that is near the top of the Eastern Conference in the standings, that is they're 4 games above 500 through 14 games, which is a healthy place to be. Like, if the Cavs are going to go through what they're going through and still be 9-5, I think you do have to feel good about things. And Donovan Mitchell's the biggest reason why. Like, if Donovan wasn't playing at this level, what would the Cavs record be? Now, there's no way of knowing that answer, but I can promise you that it would not be 9-5, that they would not be going to bed on Sunday night the number 3 team in the Eastern Conference by record, and the team that I think we should still feel pretty good about how they match up with the rest of the Eastern Conference and what the rest of this season looks like. If Donovan Mitchell were not playing like Donovan Mitchell, I think those things probably feel a little bit differently than they do. But Donovan has taken his game to another level. And I think that he has, while not every game has been great, like I thought that the first half that he had against Memphis was, by his standards, pretty bad. I thought that he did not play well in that first half, and then he makes up for it and has an outstanding fourth quarter. And not every game has been great, like the Boston game. You go back to that one that the Cavs lost where he had that just bonkers first quarter and then was kind of non-existent the rest of the night while dealing with a bit of a hamstring issue, and I think also playing through an illness too. But overall, I think what we have seen from Donovan so far this season is the number one thing to be excited about. And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago about how I viewed Donovan when the Cavs traded for him versus how I view him now. And at that point, I won't even say I wasn't convinced that Donovan could be the top player in a championship team. I just didn't think he could. And now I feel so differently about that. Like, I think that the guy that we have seen so far, and again, we're watching him do this in November and not May, and that matters. But I also think it's important to think, oh, yeah, this guy's stepped up repeatedly in the playoffs. Like, if you go back and watch that Cavs Pacers series, Donovan was doing everything possible to try and drag the Cavs across the finish line, and it just wasn't anything that was going to happen. So the fact that he's got that proven track record in the postseason, plus what we're seeing so far, it does make me feel like the Cavs are in a place where maybe Evan Mobley is not going to turn into that 1A at this point in his career. Not to say he won't get there, but at this point in his career. And we're going to talk about Evan coming up in just a minute again. But I think they've got the 1A in Donovan because I do think that we are watching a superstar reach his apex. And I don't know what it's going to look like after this, but right now, I don't think Donovan Mitchell has ever played better basketball than what he's been giving the Cavs so far this season. And to me, he looks like somebody that is more than capable of being the best player in a championship team. And I think so far, and you don't want Donovan Mitchell needing to do this the entire season. And I don't think that he will. But the fact that he's capable of doing this, I think is a really good sign. I think it does speak to just where he's at as a basketball player. The other thing that I think is a real positive, and this is like, it's a positive through a negative, because we are going to talk about the health issues that the Cavs have had. But I think the best part of the fact that other than the Cavs have found a way to win through not playing their best basketball early in the season, but I think some of the ascension that some of the role players have had on the Cavs to start this season is a big deal when you look at the future of not only this team, but the future of the franchise. Because we came into the season not knowing what to expect out of Jaylon Tyson. Now, he showed, I think, some flashes last year. I thought he had a good summer league, but summer league is summer league, and you don't know how well that is always going to translate. And for the Cavs to actually have a first-round pick a year ago and spend it on Jaylon Tyson, and with where they're at in terms of their lack of financial flexibility, they need Jaylon Tyson to be a hit. Now, they don't need Jaylon Tyson to go out there and become an all-star wing, and I don't think that's necessarily in his future. Not that I want to put a limit on him or anybody else, but that's just not the way that I view him in terms of potential. But you need that player to be a rotation player, somebody that can play in the postseason. And part of the reason the Cavs moved off of Isaac Okoro this past summer was Jaylon kind of needed that opportunity. Now, when they moved off Isaac Okoro, did they know Max Strus was going to break his foot and miss the first couple of months of the season? No, of course they didn't know that. There was no way of knowing that was going to happen. And the other side of this, like, maybe Jaylon doesn't show what he has shown so far if Max is healthy. If the Cavs are healthy, I don't think that we see what we have seen from Craig Porter Jr. today, which I do think has been very positive. I think that the best thing we've seen from the Cavs, again, other than what Donovan has done, and other than the fact that they've not played anything that closely resembles their best basketball yet, and they're still 4 games above 500, is they've got guys now in Jaylon Tyson, in Craig Porter Jr., maybe in Naquan Tomlin, maybe in Tyrese Proctor. Like, I would like to see more from those two specifically, but I think that they've got some young guys that you can feel good about if you're the Cavs, putting them out there. Like, if something happens to, say, Max Strus or DeAndre Hunter in the postseason, and of course you don't want that to happen, but I think the Cavs would be very confident if Jaylon Tyson needed to go out there and play 20 minutes in a playoff game. I think they'd feel pretty good about that. I think I would feel pretty good about seeing that happen, because I think Jaylon has stepped up basically in every opportunity that he's been given. His shooting, I think, has come a long way. He shot the ball very, very well so far. And, you know, it's a bummer that he's out right now with the concussion, and we'll see when he gets back. I wouldn't expect it to be necessarily within the next couple of games, maybe by the end of this week if all goes well. But so far this season, when he's been on the floor, I think he's been a real positive for the Cavs. I think that Kenny Atkinson has trusted him in some big moments, and I think that he has come through in those big moments. And I think that is how you earn more trust, not only from the coaching staff, but also from your teammates. Like if the Cavs are in the playoffs and Jaylon Tyson needs to play, which, I don't think they were super comfortable with last year in the postseason. But if Jaylon Tyson needs to play in the playoffs this year, the Cavs are going to be comfortable with it in a way that they weren't last year. If Craig Porter Jr. needs to play in the playoffs this season, the Cavs are going to be comfortable with it in a way they very clearly weren't last year during that Pacers series. They did not want to put him on the floor. And I think that because of what they've shown so far this year, you think about the game that Craig had against Miami last week, where, he had 19 points, but he's doing all the role player things at such a high level. And that, to me, is one of the most important things to come out of the first 14 games of the season, is that they've got guys that fit into the roles that they need. And when they are, if they are ever fully healthy, because that is no given, I think they'll have an abundance of riches in that category. But you don't learn about that stuff unless you actually see it happen. And had the Cavs been fully healthy from the start, we don't see this happen. We don't see Jaylon Tyson get the runway that he's gotten. We don't see Craig Porter Jr. get the opportunity. Maybe a little bit less with Craig, just because I think Lonzo Ball was always going to be on a minutes plan the way that he is. But Darius, Garland were healthy, we see far less of Craig Porter Jr. And I just think that those are the things that you look at and say, okay, what do we want to look at from the first, not even quarter of a season yet, first like sixth of a season that the Cavs have played? What do we want to look at and say, yeah, that's something to be happy about? Because again, not everything has been great. They're 9-5. They're not 14-0 the way they were through 14 games last year. But I think these are some things that are positive that have come out of it. Now, there are still some things that we need to see be better from the Cavs moving forward this season. Just because it hasn't been great so far doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but these are some things that need to be better for the Cavs. I'll tell you what they are next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, but every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, so expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that is Robinhood, ROBINHOOD.com/your, YOUR money. Your money, your move. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Basketball season officially here. Nothing beats being in the arena for those early season matchups. We've got a couple of big ones in Cleveland. Cavs on a big homestand this week. You're going to want to be in town. You're going to want to be in the building. They've got some big games. Obviously tonight, Milwaukee's in town. They've got Houston on Wednesday, which is another throwback or a classic edition, I guess we're going to call it, night in Cleveland. I love those. I think it's just such a great look and something that you definitely want to be in the building for. We've got an NBA Cup game on Friday night against the Indiana Pacers, who they stink. I'm just going to say it. The Indiana Pacers stink. Maybe that's not like the game you want to go see the opponent, but you might be able to go see a nice, easy Cavs win. And if that's what you want, Game Time is the place to get you in the door. And they make it easy, because oftentimes trying to buy tickets can be a total headache. You got to wait in queues. You've got surprise fees. The price is going to jump right before checkout. That doesn't happen with Game Time. That's not what they're about. They give fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and most importantly, stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Yeah, $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Just use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Terms do apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Thank you again for making today's edition your first listen, and thank you for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. The Cavs can be better in some areas, and I think the number one area that stands out or has stood out to me so far is the play of Evan Mobley. And right now, it's funny because I think if you pull up Evan Mobley's basketball reference page and you just look at the top and you say, oh, he's averaging 19.2 points per game, which is nearly 3 points higher than his career average. That's a good thing. He's averaging 9 rebounds a game. That's right on par with his career average. That's not a bad thing. He's averaging 4.2 assists per game. That is above his career average of 3 assists per game. He's shooting 36% from 3. That is above his career average. I think you can look at that and say, okay, this isn't bad, right? And I don't think Evan Mobley has been bad. And that is why I think that he's in this area of things that I would like to see improve. Because Evan hasn't been a bad basketball player this year. I think that he's been as good as ever defensively. I think that end of the floor certainly holds up. I think the fact that he is handling a little bit more playmaking, he's got 4.2 assists per game, is a very good sign. The fact that he is at a career high in scoring, also a very good sign. But I come away wanting a little bit more. And I think the efficiency is the thing that I look at, because I look at this and say, okay, well, he is, despite scoring a career high, it's more so because he's taking more shots. He's taking 14.6 field goal attempts per game, which is nearly 2 more than any other season, because he's also shooting a career low from the floor. Now he's shooting 36% from 3, which is fine. Would I like it to be 37, 38? Sure. But 36 on the volume that he's taking, because it is important to note, last year he was taking 3.2 a game. This year he's taking 5 a game. So that volume increase is a good thing. If the percentage is going to slip just a hair, I think that's something that you live with. But overall, I look at this and just say, I'm not sure that Evan Mobley is quite clicked yet this year. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. And when I think the Cavs talk about growing pains, because they have talked about growing pains a lot. You've heard me talk about it on the show. If you've listened to what the Cavs say in post-game interviews, you've heard them talk about it. It has been a very frequent topic of conversation, and with good reason. Like, the Cavs don't look like a championship caliber team right now. That is okay because it's November. Now, if they look like this in February, then I think it becomes an issue. And I think if Evan looks like this in February, that's when I think you can kind of start to be worried. But he very clearly has taken on a new role. And one of the things that I think stands out to me about this new role is where his shots are coming from. So for the first time in his career, he's taking just about 5 threes per game. And that is still not that is not the majority of his shots. He's still taking just about twice as many 2s per 3, which is about where it should be. He should be taking 2 times as many 2-pointers as he does 3-pointers, in my opinion. But the kinds of 2-pointers he's taking, I don't necessarily always love. There's been more mid-range that has been mixed in. He's not inside in the restricted area as frequently as he has been. And I think that his shooting percentage has really dipped because of that. It's not because he's taking more 3s. Like, yes, it's down a little bit. It's down 1% from last year, but that's not overall like a thing that I look at and say, yes, he's a much different player because he's 1% worse on a higher volume from 3. It's not the case. What stands out to me is he's shooting 52.4% inside the arc. That's the lowest mark of Evan's career. As a rookie, Evan Mobley shot 54.1% inside the arc. Solid number as a rookie. That jumped to 59% his second year. Third year was 60%. Last year was 62%. And I don't know that it can grow much higher out of 62%. Like, that's a very high number on 2s, but I know that it should not be 10 percentage points worse. That's the thing that I look at and say, how does that get fixed? How does that get back on track? And I don't expect a lot of his other numbers to change, but that to me is the one that needs to be different. For Evan to be as effective as he has been on the past offensively, he needs to be efficient inside the arc. Like, I don't think that he's going to turn into a 40% 3-point shooter. I think he kind of is who he is, and who he is right now, I think, is good enough beyond the arc. I really, truly do. If you told me Evan's never going to change as a 3-point shooter, if he's going to be 36 to 37% from 3 and take between 4 and 5 a game, I think you're very happy with that. Like, I think that's a fine place to be. But the stuff inside the arc needs to get better. The free throw line needs to get better. He's shooting in. I will say it's a great thing his free throw attempts are up. That is a positive. He's taking 6 free throws a game, which his previous high was last year was 4.3. That's a step in the right direction. But he's only shooting 62.8% on that. That needs to improve. So for me, it almost feels like Evan Mobley's so close. He's so close to turning that corner. And I do think that he will. I ultimately think the worst case for what Evan Mobley looks like this year is the guy he was last year. Like, he's not going to look the same way that he does right now all season. He's going to get better. But I think that we are very close to seeing something click with Evan. And when it clicks, he's going to turn into a much better player than he was. They're just not there yet. I do think it's coming. And I think that some of these numbers sort of give you the clue that, yeah, that leap is on its way. The other thing that needs to improve is the health, right? The Cavs have not been healthy this year. They've played 14 games. They've had 8 different starting lineups, which is a lot of different starting lineups. They need to get Darius Garland back. I would guess we might see him by the end of this homestand. He's not going to play tonight against Milwaukee, but Kenny Atkinson said on Saturday that they're hoping to get him a run, like, play 5-on-5 full contact stuff, that he had a good workout over the weekend. I don't know what he did on Sunday, but I would imagine that getting him back on the floor is obviously a priority. It doesn't seem like the re-aggravation of his toe was that big of a deal. So hopefully he's back on the floor by the end of this week. I think that is a possible thing. I'm not going to sit here and promise that, but I do think it is possible that he plays by the end of this week. They need to get Max Strus back. They will at a certain point. I think that's still more than a month away. I would be very surprised if he plays within the next 30 days. Jaylon, Tyson, concussions are what concussions are, right? Like, you kind of can't control that. You have a protocol to go through, and the Cavs are at that mercy, and you just hope that Jaylon Tyson feels better. But I do think it's just worth noting, when they had Darius Garland back in the lineup, they looked like a much better team than the team they've been without Darius Garland. And maybe that's putting too much on Darius Garland's plate, but that certainly is the way that it's felt to me. Now, I want to get to a couple of the numbers that I think are important for the Cavs, but there's one more thing that I think needs to be ironed out. And I want to tell you what that is next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, or maybe you just want to see how things start off, it's like, hey, you know what? I don't have a great feel for what's going to happen tonight. I want to try and ride the hot hand late if I can. FanDuel is the place to go, because FanDuel, yes, they've got live betting. You can bet on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for your shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one making that late push, maybe like the Cavs were on Saturday night against the Memphis Grizzlies when they came back from down 11 to win that game at home. Now, the Cavs are back in action tonight, taking on the Milwaukee Bucks at home. Cavs are 6.5-point favorites over the Bucks. Darius Garland will not play. Jaylon Tyson will not play. Giannis Antetokounmpo listed as probable, so I would imagine that he will be in the lineup. He seems to be on the injury report just about every day, but the Cavs are favorites in that one if you want to try your hand with FanDuel. And even better, if you're a new customer with FanDuel, there's never been a better time to sign up, because right now FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Yeah, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch. And if you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And the thing that I think needs to be ironed out before we get to some of the trends that I do think matter is what's going on with Jarrett Allen. So this year, I think Jarrett, for the most part, has been good. And I think we also, because when I, on social media put out the injury report, as I do the day before every game or the afternoon of the second night of a back-to-back, Jarrett Allen is not on it. But it's important to note that, he fractured his finger not too long ago and has been dealing with that and playing through that. And I think he deserves credit for that. And I think that he has, for the most part, played well through that. But the thing that is interesting to me is how much he's playing. So far this season, Jarrett Allen is actually playing the fewest minutes per game that he has played since he was a rookie. That's just like, it's a jarring thing to say. So Jarrett Allen's rookie year in Brooklyn, this is 2017, 2018. He was a 19-year-old. LeBron was still on the Cavs at this point, folks. Jarrett Allen played 20 minutes per game. As I believe it was number 27 overall pick, playing 20 minutes a game. Not bad, even if it's on a rebuilding team. And, he was good. But whatever, that's not important to this conversation. Then his second year, he played 26.2 minutes a game, 26.5, 29. Then when he got to Cleveland, was playing 30 minutes a night, 32, 32, 31. Last year, he played 28. But a lot of that was because the Cavs were blowing out teams. So he didn't play a lot of fourth quarter because the Cavs had so many wins by 20 points or more, by 10 points or more. So his minutes were just cut short there. This year, Jarrett Allen, over the 12 games that he's played, is playing 25.9 minutes per game, which, if you remember, I said his second year in the NBA played 26.2. That was his previous low in terms of minutes per game. And I don't quite understand why this number is so low. And I understand that Kenny Atkinson wants to play a lengthy rotation. He likes to play 10. I think that he has more than 10 guys that are capable. And I do wonder about Larry Nance Jr.'s minutes, if he's going to continue to get them, because he's not been very good so far for the Cavs. But his production is fine. That has not been an issue. If you look at it, in fewer minutes per game this year, he's averaging more points per game. He's up to 15.6, which is kind of on par with it's higher than who he's been throughout his career. It's higher than his average as a member of the Cavs in the 6 seasons he's played for Cleveland. That has not been the issue. And has he been as efficient this year as last year? No, he's not. He's not shooting 70% from the floor the way that he did last year. But I also look at this and say Jarrett Allen should probably be playing a little bit more than he is. And part of it is the fourth quarter. So far this season, 15 different players have played in the fourth quarter for the Cavs. Now, this is not the most fair stat, but I will give the stat that I think is a little bit more fair in a second. Of the 15 players that have played in the fourth quarter at some point this season for the Cavs, Jarrett Allen is averaging the fewest fourth quarter minutes per game. That, to me, seems off. Now, part of it is where Jarrett's place in the rotation is. Part of it is Kenny Atkinson very clearly is comfortable closing without Jarrett Allen on the floor, and those things matter. But if you want to look at raw minutes played, like how many just total fourth quarter minutes have you played? Jarrett Allen is 10th. That, to me, is alarming, because I look at this and just think, well, how is that possible? That somebody that is, if you listen to this show, I think you know that I think Jarrett Allen is not a core player. I think Jarrett Allen is a high-end role player. He's very good at what he does, but he's not on the same level to me as Evan Mobley, as Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland. The core for the Cavs is 3 guys, and it's not Jarrett, and that's fine. There's not teams in the NBA that have cores that are 4 guys. But he's better than the 10th best player. He should not be 10th in fourth quarter minutes. So I just wonder, why is it like that? And is that something that's going to get changed? And I don't have an answer for that right now. Kenny Atkinson has said it's because of pace, how quickly the game is being played right now, and that doesn't necessarily suit Jarrett's style. And I would agree with that. But I would also say, well, how come the Cavs aren't being the team that enforces their own style of play? How come they're not the ones that are dictating what the game looks like, ensuring that Jarrett Allen can be on the floor? I don't have an answer to that. That is the one thing that I do think needs to be solved. Now, before we get out of here, I've got some stats and trends I want to dive into. I think we're deep enough in the season now to where I can make this a weekly thing, but it also kind of needs to be taken with a grain of salt because the Cavs have not been healthy this year. So the Cavs entered this week 11th in offensive rating. They're averaging 116.7 points per 100 possessions. That's okay. The Cavs will be better than that when they're fully healthy. And since the day Darius Garland debuted, the Cavs have the 6th best offense at 122 points per game. So that's a really, really healthy place to be. And even if you think back to last year, when the Cavs were the number 1 offense, not just in the NBA, well, yes, just in the NBA, but they were the number 2 offense in NBA history. Their offensive rating last year was 121. So since Darius Garland made his debut, it's been a week and a half, right? They're better than they were last year. It's just some other teams are better too. That's why they're 6th. But overall, I think the offense is in a good place. It doesn't always look great, but I think it's in an okay place. Defensively, they're 9th at 112.5. That's, I think, should be better than where they are. And since that Sixers game, they're at 114, which is 15th. And that is not to me an acceptable place for them to be defensively. Net rating, they are 11th at 4.2. Their net rating is 8 since the Sixers game, which coincidentally is also 11th in the NBA. And then lastly, and this is the one that I think I'm going to have my eyes on here. Pace. The Cavs are 6th right now in the NBA in pace, averaging 103.09 possessions per game. That to me is too fast. And this is where I get to what I just said about Jarrett Allen. The Cavs are a team that is built to play fast. They're not built to play that fast. To me, their pace number should be somewhere around 100, 101, and they should probably rank somewhere around 11 or 12. I think that's a healthy place to be. And pace is not a thing where it's like, oh, we're number 1 in pace. We're good. Yay. It's not how that goes. It's also not, we're number 30 in pace. We stink. Those things don't correlate. It's about stylistically, what do you look like? And I think stylistically, this is not a healthy place for the Cavs. And going back to that November 5th date, the Cavs are 5th in pace. And I think a lot of that has to do with the teams that they've played. Like that was a game against the Sixers who play fast. They played the Wizards who play fast. They played the Bulls who play fast. They played the Heat twice who play very, very fast. They play the Raptors who like to play fast. Like they have played their last 6 or so games have been against 5 different teams that all play fast. And that is part of this. But the Cavs, to me, need to do a better job of dictating the style of game that is played if they want to reach their full potential. And if they do that, I think we start to see that pace number drop just a little bit. So that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Cavs. The Cavs do take on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. So you know what that means. There will be an episode of Locked on Cavs first thing tomorrow morning, talking about everything that happens in that game. And then Wednesday's episode, hoping to have something special lined up. Don't want to give it away. It has not yet been recorded, but hoping that I've got something good lined up for Wednesday's episode of Locked on Cavs. So you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed on Apple, on Spotify, or anywhere else that you get your podcasts. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, which you should be doing, you should be watching on YouTube and listening via Apple right now. Like that's how you should just like overconsumption of Locked on Cavs. But if you're doing that, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. And I'll be back first thing tomorrow morning talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.